The room was bathed in the soft, golden light of late afternoon, and the hum of the city outside was muffled through the thick curtains. Emma sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor, a sketchbook balanced on her knee and a pencil tucked behind her ear. Her auburn hair caught the sunlight as it tumbled over her shoulder in loose waves. Across the room, Liam was rummaging through a box of vinyl records, his brows furrowed in concentration, his dark curls falling messily over his forehead. "Okay, I've found it," Liam said finally, holding up a record triumphantly. "The perfect song for this moment." Emma glanced up, arching a playful brow. "What moment? I'm just drawing you looking ridiculous over there." Liam rolled his eyes but smiled, a crooked grin that made her heart flip every single time. "You'll see. Just trust me." He placed the record on the old turntable they'd found at a flea market and carefully lowered the needle. A warm, crackling sound filled the room before the soft notes of a piano began to play. The melody was tender, the kind that seemed to wrap itself around your heart and squeeze gently. Liam held out his hand to her. "Dance with me," he said, his voice soft. Emma laughed, a light, melodic sound. "There's no way I'm dancing with you right now. I'm covered in charcoal, and you're wearing socks with holes in them." "Doesn't matter," Liam said, stepping closer. He grabbed her hand, tugging her up before she could protest further. "Come on, we haven't danced since last week. I'm not letting this streak die." "You're ridiculous," she muttered, but her smile betrayed her. Liam pulled her into his arms, his hands settling at her waist as hers slid up to his shoulders. They swayed together, their movements lazy and uncoordinated, but perfect in their own way. Emma leaned her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath the music. "See? This isn't so bad," Liam murmured into her hair. "It's all right," she teased, tilting her head to look up at him. Her hazel eyes sparkled, and he couldn't help but chuckle. "Admit it," he said. "You're having the time of your life right now." "Don't push it, Liam," she replied, but her cheeks were flushed, and her lips curved in that small, secretive smile that he loved. They danced until the record ended, the room falling quiet except for the soft rustle of their movements. When they finally pulled apart, Emma reached up and brushed a strand of hair from Liam's face. Her fingers lingered against his cheek, and for a moment, neither of them said anything. "Do you know what my favorite thing about you is?" Emma asked suddenly. Liam tilted his head, intrigued. "What?" "You make the simplest moments feel like magic," she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the words filled the space between them like a spark. For once, Liam didn't have a witty comeback. He just leaned down and kissed her, slow and deep, like he was trying to memorize the shape of her lips, the taste of her. Emma's hand slipped into his hair, and for a moment, the world outside the apartment didn't exist. It was just the two of them, tangled up in each other, with the faint glow of sunset painting their skin. The next morning, Emma woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of pots clattering in the kitchen. She groaned and rolled over, burying her face in the pillow. "Liam, if you burn the toast again, I'm divorcing you before we're even married." "We're not getting married yet," Liam called back, his voice muffled by the sound of running water. "But nice to know where your priorities are." Emma laughed and dragged herself out of bed, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders as she padded into the kitchen. Liam was standing at the stove, wearing an apron that said, "Kiss the cook." There was flour smudged on his cheek, and he was glaring at a frying pan like it had personally wronged him. "What are you doing?" Emma asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Trying to make pancakes," Liam said without looking up. "I figured we could have breakfast in bed. You know, like in those cheesy romantic movies you pretend you don't like." "First of all," Emma said, crossing the room and stealing a piece of fruit from the counter, "I don't pretend. I openly love cheesy romantic movies. Second of all, you're terrible at this." "Hey, I'm doing my best here," Liam protested. "I even looked up a recipe." Emma laughed and kissed his cheek. "You're adorable when you're trying too hard." By the time they sat down to eat, the pancakes were slightly burnt, and the kitchen looked like a flower bomb had gone off. But Emma didn't care. They sat on the floor with their plates balanced on their knees, laughing and stealing bites from each other's plates. That night, they climbed onto the roof of their apartment building, a bottle of cheap wine between them, and a blanket wrapped around their shoulders. The city stretched out before them, a sea of lights and possibilities. "Do you ever think about the future?" Emma asked. Her head resting on Liam's shoulder. "All the time," Liam said, "but mostly I think about you being in it." Emma turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face. "You mean that?" "Of course I do," Liam said. He took her hand, threading their fingers together. "I want all of it with you, Emma. The good, the bad, the boring Tuesday afternoons. I want it all." Emma smiled, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. "You're such a sap." "Yeah, but I'm your sap," Liam said, kissing the top of her head. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like everything was exactly as it should be. There was no grand gesture, no dramatic declaration. Just them, together. And that was enough.